and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who has circled February 10th on his calendar so he doesn't forget. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I've circled it too. We got it circled together.
Yep. We'll be in here circling it together,
yes.
I think.
As I understand it, there's going to be a stream that you can watch of the US soccer presidential election. We don't have the URL for you yet. We don't know what it's going to be.
We've said there will be, so hopefully there is. Otherwise, we're going to be frantically calling people who are in Orlando for the presidential election.
We're going to have a man in Orlando. We can't reveal his name just yet in case it falls through, but we'll have a correspondent, just like the Daily Show.
Yeah.
But it'll be real.
Yeah.
A correspondent in Orlando for the US soccer presidential election.
Yep.
We also, Taylor interviewed Michael Winograd yesterday's Total Soccer Show. Anyway, so if you want to go back and listen to that, I thoroughly recommend it. Tomorrow, we're going to do US soccer presidential candidate Voltron.
Yep.
We are going to take the best things from each candidate and try and put them all together for a sort of best case scenario of the US soccer presidential election.
I would amend that to say I am not planning to take things from every single candidate because not every single candidate has announced a clear platform. So I'm going to go with the things that I know.
Burn.
And no, I mean, I don't think that's not a burn at all. I mean, I think there's lots of theoretical ideas about how we might be able to improve things.
Yes.
But I think there aren't as many like concrete ideas to go off of. So I will be going with the ones that I've very much enjoyed hearing about throughout the campaign.
Yep.
Not actively going out and looking at the other candidates who maybe haven't proposed those plans.
I see.
And trying to find things.
And I think we'll do that sort of our version of endorsing. We're not going to endorse a candidate because, frankly, we don't feel like we're not the Richmond Times-Dispatch or a newspaper that carries the weight. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to be endorsing a candidate.
Probably should have chosen a different paper. But yeah, no, I mean that is the reality, and we're not voters, so it's not really. I don't feel like I know enough. Obviously, we have not spoken to every single one of the candidates, so I don't feel like I could say with confidence this is the one that is going to do the best for U.S.
That's
soccer.
the other thing. There's a lot of these conversations happen behind closed doors, not like because it's meant to be kept secret, but because we're not voters, we're not being appealed to directly, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, we will get into U.S. soccer presidential election on tomorrow's show. On today's show, we have all kinds of listener questions to get into.
We sure do.
Would you like to start?
I would. From Phil Doucette.
Yes.
I'm going to go with that. During the recent fallout after the great Jonathan Gonzalez heist of 2017-2018.
Heist is a good one.
It is.
Could be a Steven Soderbergh movie one day.
Sure, I think so. He's already done Traffic, which was like Mexico, United States. It works.
Ocean's Number 6, it'll be called.
Or that. Several people... You shouldn't feel good about that. Several people talked about U.S. soccer powers that be failing to recognize or rate Latino talent. And
that's in quotes, by the way.
And their quote-unquote style of play, causing very talented players to fall through the cracks. However, there isn't always a lot of clarification by folks about what they mean by quote-unquote Latino talent or quote-unquote Latino style of play. Ignoring for a second that this seems like a gross generalization / borderline cultural stereotype.
Agree.
What kind of characteristics do you think people are referring to when they use this shorthand? And what's your opinion on whether or not these accusations ring true?
Okay, I would guess when people talk about, quote, Latino style of play, they're thinking of dribbly number 10 playmaking type player. They're imagining players who are unafraid to use technical skills to go at people. I'm thinking like Tecatito, Jesus Corona. I'm thinking of Diego Armando Maradona. I'm thinking Gio dos Santos. I think when people are talking very broadly, that is probably what they're talking about. And I think the reason they do that is because there aren't that many US men's national team players with that same ability.
Yes. I also do think, strangely enough, that there is an element of... I don't think it's racism, but it's a way of seeing things that like we've seen it and heard it when we were like running drills with the street soccer team, where it's like, well, this isn't how they do it in Brazil. They just play in the streets with no shoes on, and that's how they get really good. And I do think that there is that idea of like they're out there, they of course are out there like every day playing, like that's all they do, and that's how you get really good. We don't have that level of dedication, and I think there is that little element there as well. But that's not what I'm trying to look at. That's not what I think of when I think of the ways in which the Latino community in the United States has not been served.
Because let's be straight, the actual like Latino style of play is all kinds of styles of play, right? There are target men. There's Raul Jimenez, right? Or there's that guy we play against. We play against FC Mexico in the local league. There's definitely a target man on that team. There are those dribbly players, but there are also number sixes like Jonathan Gonzalez, defensive midfielders, right? Or Duenas, who plays for the Mexican national team. There are centre backs like Rafa Marquez and Montes. So there are, I think it is too narrow to say Latino style of play, and we're talking very Mexican here, but I guess you
Yeah.
could apply this also to South America and like, talk about all the Argentinian number 10s in Major League Soccer, for example, are a good example.
Yeah, but I think, and then if you flip it around for a second and think about, like, so what are U.S. coaches or scouts not seeing, or what are they ignoring? Again, I don't think it's one particular thing. It's not as though we only care about strong, fast guys. So if you're not strong and fast, no thank you. Like, that's such an obvious like area of vulnerability that wouldn't be the way it works. But I do think that there are certain ways of looking at the game that maybe don't get utilized by American scouts or coaches in the way they do other countries.
So are you moving into, I'm not sure this is actually in the question, but are you moving into sort of why these players, Latino players, don't get as looked at by US soccer? Say, for example, when they're scouting for national teams.
Oh, I guess I'm going to combine it here. And I talked to Travis Clark, with whom we do the Top Drawer Soccer
Travis
show.
M. Clark.
Thank you.
It's his Twitter name.
Because I asked him this too, because I did want to know, like, does he think there are things that U.S. scouts who are out there, Development Academy scouts or whatever, are out there ignoring? And he said, no, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of different things, as we've already talked about. But one thing he did point out is, like, you look at, say, John Hackworth's U17 teams, and it tends to be you don't have a number 10, you play wide to a very pacey player, it's very kind of direct, there's not a lot of technical passing through the middle.
Central mids are number 6 and 2 number 8s.
Yep.
That's the thing we keep identifying.
Yeah, so then if you're looking at players and you have a very talented number 10 who's, starting for a Liga MX club, or like is on the verge of breaking into the starting 11, but they're that like creative technical number 10, but maybe that's not what you need, that might be a player that they don't look at and rate as highly as a very pacey winger who has a great left foot who can hook that ball into the box and cause problems.
Yeah.
So like it's...
But are you saying this, are you falling into the trap of saying that the Latino style of play is dribbly creators who don't press, and so therefore US doesn't look at them? Because I honestly feel like that's too reductive of a way to think of the Latino style of play.
No, that's not what I'm doing. But
Okay.
what I'm saying is that I think there is an element there of when coaches are building their teams, they look at the exact positions and how they want those exact positions to play. And I do think sometimes it means that they don't look at players as being completely as technical. They look more so as the players doing what that coach specifically wants them to do. And then that lends itself to, I know that guy's going to do that, so I'm going to keep calling that kid in over and over again because he's performed before, and maybe it doesn't lend to, I'm going to see what this other kid can do and what this other area might offer.
My guess, before we move on, is that the reason that there is this thing of US soccer not identifying Latino talent may be just a cultural thing. We've talked before about sort of how little Spanish language stuff there is on ussoccer.com. We've heard about at the Alianza Showcase how the US soccer representatives were officially not there and were hiding behind bleachers. And it may be just a thing of the people US soccer has are not doing a good job of integrating and approaching and saying, hey, I'm from US soccer. Can I, I'm watching this game. Who looks good?
Yeah.
Not good at making those connections, essentially.
I think that's definitely part of it. And then I think it is also that
Thomas Rongan was confused about what's a house and what's a telephone.
We're not going to talk about him. But lots of the other scouts you do have, though, it is still like they have games they have to be at. They have tournaments they have to be at. And it probably is an element of they don't have enough time and resources. U.S. soccer hasn't allotted enough time and resources to allow those coaches to go out and watch random games and go to Alianza and go to areas that they wouldn't otherwise approach. And then on top of that, I think, to your point, you probably do have some guys who don't speak Spanish. And so they're going to think, maybe I'll go to this, Jefferson Cup as opposed to this Spanish language tournament down the street. Or I just don't feel as comfortable. I don't know the players and maybe I can't converse with them. So no, I'm just going to stay in my lane. And I think that is definitely where you start to see some areas not get coverage, not get recruited the way they probably should be.
Do you think, this is a tough question because neither of us have actually seen this in action, but is there a possibility that the technical advisors or scouts are going out and they have a conception in their head of what, say, a Mexican player does, and they maybe think that doesn't fit with what we want US soccer to do? I'm trying not to ask you a leading question because I know that it's very easy to sort of accuse US soccer of essentially being racist in that sense, but I wonder if there's a weird cultural thing where there are assumptions made about what Mexican players do.
I don't know. I really don't know is my honest answer to that. I would probably say no because that's what I want.
We hope they're smarter than that.
That's what I want the answer to be.
Yeah, we hope US soccer is smarter than that.
But I do think that maybe there's an element of if I say like you are Tab Ramos and you send me to go train some scouts to go find other players. And so you tell me what you want, and then it's like there's a distillation of that gets to the next level of scouts that might be sort of like the bullet points. And then if you're only looking for the bullet points of what Tab Ramos wants, then you're looking for very basic things. And maybe that excludes other stuff that Tab Ramos actually did want, but that doesn't get conveyed. So suddenly he's looking for wingers and he's looking for this type of defender. And so that's all they might be looking for. And it like limits what they're actually seeing on the field because they're just thinking, yeah, that guy's really good, but they didn't say anything about a number 10. He said he wanted a number 6, so I'm looking for number 6s. So like it might be that level of it, but I don't think it is so much so like, nah, we just know what they're all about, so no thank you.
Yeah, okay. I think that's probably a fair way.
Maybe. But I mean, we just don't know enough about how the scouting system works. And that, again, is a problem with U.S. soccer on the whole, I would say, is that it seems like there are lots of problems that all bleed into each other that are very difficult to solve.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in the future, especially after the election, depending on who wins. We could see progress or we could see things that we're annoyed about. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Next question.
I would add final thing on that, though, before we move on.
Next question.
Because this goes back to my conversation with Herculez Gomez, though, is that while this is definitely the case with Latino talent, it is also the case that there are very underutilized or under-scouted markets that are not Latino predominant, but inner-city areas are not nearly as well recruited as they should be, and you don't have nearly as many kids coming out of those areas as you do suburban areas. So I think it's not just a Latino problem, it's a U.S. soccer problem.
So there's more than one problem, it turns out. Colin Marshall wants to know, following the recent unpleasantness, we all know what that was. Thank you, Trinidad. There has been a huge push to bring the next generation into the US men's national team. In your opinion, what would the requirements be before it was reasonable to call up these young players? At what point does potential win out over experience? This is the crucial question in terms of US men's national team selection.
Yes. I think it certainly depends on what type of call-up that we're talking about. But let's say
say March friendlies. Let's say we're thinking about the March friendlies that are coming up in a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
That still is difficult. But I would say I'm going to go with the generic World Cup qualifier. Say we're looking at a World Cup qualifier and you have like your established players.
Well, no, but he's talking about right now and we don't have any World Cup qualifiers coming for a good old while.
That's
right?
fair. Yeah. Okay. Then I would say, I mean, really, it's kind of fair game at this point. I think it's open season and really my two requirements would be either it's a player who is getting minutes and playing well with their club, or it's a player who has done a lot of good work coming through the youth national teams that is maybe looking for a club.
Okay.
And I think specifically what I'm talking about here is a situation like Josh Sargent, who proved can do it at U17 level, can do it at U20 level. So I would say gets rewarded with that call-up for Portugal, for the Portugal friendly in
November he was called up. He didn't play, but he was definitely in the US national team.
And I think that I'm okay with. What I don't want to see is just panic. He's an 18-year-old and he's in the Bayern Academy. Let's get him in there.
Yes. Timothy Tillman, for example, I think he was called up or has had conversations about playing for the US under-20s. Yeah. That sounds good to me. But trying to get Timothy Tillman straight to the senior US men's national team when he has not played a senior game for Bayern Munich is way too soon, right? And again, like Josh Sargent is almost the exception here, I would say, because he's overperformed expectations for the US youth teams. And in November, he was with Werder Bremen, or he was about to be with Werder Bremen, but he wasn't quite there because he had to wait till he turned 18 to get fully involved. So he was kind of at a loose end, and there's no reason not to have him at least train with the US senior team.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I would argue that. So that's for the March friendlies.
Senior team minutes.
Yes.
Senior team minutes. Okay, how many? So, for example, Weston McKennie, at the end of last Bundesliga season, he got like 10 minutes, I believe, in the final game of the season. Does he automatically go from, can't really consider him, he hasn't played for the senior team yet, to, he's played those 10 minutes, get him on that plane for a US national team game? Or does it have to be, does he have to play 90 minutes? Does he have to play 10 games? You know what I'm saying? It's quite, I know that there's not actually a line you can draw, and that line is always the correct line because it's different for every player, but roughly, what do you think?
Well, I can say that I can draw rough lines in terms of, I think the way I would like to see the US national team player pool looked at is sort of like you have certain players who are, if they're healthy, they're going to be called in because they are sort of fundamental to how you're building your team, how you're setting yourself out. Then you've got the guys who are getting the consistent first team minutes with their clubs, are looking good. And then I would say there's that next level.
Are we talking all about young players here, or this is the whole roster?
It's the whole roster. And then you've got that next level. And the player that I would say, like I can use as my best example, is not American, but it's Marcus Rashford. And when he started to come through with Man United, he started that Michelin game in the Europa League, and it was kind of random, but he looked okay. And then he started getting more minutes. he is the type of player that I would say, like,
and then he went to Euro 2016.
There is that.
Yeah.
And I would think that, and I would say that, like, so to go back to your question, if you have Weston McKennie, who maybe has McKennie, who has never in the past had never gotten like looks from the U.S. national team at senior level, but he's starting to start for Schalke. He gets a start here. He gets 20 minutes here. I think then you have that next wave of players who you call in as a recognition of, like, yeah, look, we see what you're doing. You're doing great stuff. We want to see what you can do in camp. No guarantees on any sort of minutes you're going to get. You might not even play. But it is sort of a reminder to young players coming through that, hey, if you kind of start to make those moves, you're going to get looked at, as opposed to only when you're starting and playing every single game in the Bundesliga, then we'll bring you in.
What about Keaton Parks? I think Keaton Parks is a good example. He is, from what I've seen in the highlights...
I don't like that you brought him up.
Lighting it up for Benfica B whenever he plays. He had that great Zlatan-y assist. He is on the periphery of the Benfica A team, the Benfica actual senior team. He's often either in the matchday squad and on the bench and either does or doesn't play, or he's around the first team and doesn't quite make the bench for the matchday squad. So he's definitely not a regular, right? There's no way Keaton Parks can say, I'm a regular starter for Benfica, but he's on the fringes of the Eagles. And so is that good enough to get a call up to a match friendly?
I think it depends on what like level of start or what level of minutes he's getting. Like if he's getting 10 minutes every fourth game, I don't know. I really don't.
I think he's doing slightly better than that,
That's
but
what I'd say.
Not much better than that.
Yeah, and I think
that's a tough one.
I think that not really, because I think it puts him in that level that I was just describing, where he is starting to get minutes. You want him to know, hey, look, you're on the radar, you're doing good things. We want to keep you involved. Maybe that's one of those where we know this has happened in the past, where he's one of the players who you call in but are not on the official roster, where you've got like your 23-player roster.
Michael Bradley did that as a kid, right? You just come and hang out with the senior team. Sargent unofficially did that. He was officially listed, but he basically looks like he was never going to play.
But it's happened. I can't remember like specific examples, but I know it's happened before where we were like, wait, what? That guy was in camp? And the journalists who we talked to were like, oh yeah, he was just around like training for a couple days. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize. So maybe that's like a Keaton Parks thing, is you want to see like, hey, how do you do against like the senior national team players? But also we want you to see what it looks like and kind of get involved with the guys.
And we all shake hands and eat lunch and meet you, right? That's all part of it. Yeah. I would say, how about this? Brooks Lennon, Justin Glad, all those guys, U20 stalwarts were called up for the January camp after being regulars in Major League Soccer for Real Salt Lake specifically. Those guys, Danilo Costa, the same. They're part of that January camp for a couple of weeks, but then they're completely left off of the matchday squad for the January game against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Part of me now in hindsight thinks it was still valuable for them to be part of the squad, even if they didn't make the matchday squad and play. Right, we're disappointed not to see them, but at least they understood what it was like to play to be around the US men's national team senior team. So I would say that they're perfectly fine to be called in, right? Because they're playing professional minutes in MLS. I've talked myself into they're probably a bad example now because there's no question about it. They're just young players who are playing regularly anyway.
I was a little curious where you're going with that.
I've come full circle.
Well, I think the wrinkle here that we're not acknowledging is the fact that we're still looking at this from the idea of like Dave Sarachan is in charge right now.
Yeah.
If we had a permanent manager in charge, maybe that changes how those players are seen, because suddenly the permanent manager has had the January camp. Maybe he didn't like or love what he saw from them, so he wants to give them a little bit more seasoning. In the meantime, he's going to go look elsewhere. But the reality is, if we have a new manager, it's kind of call everybody in and see who fits and then continue to evolve. Yeah, kind of.
Can I switch back around finally to Jonathan Gonzalez?
Sure, and then I've got one more after that. So go
okay,
ahead.
So Jonathan Gonzalez was a guy who was playing regularly from around about August, I believe, for Monterrey, and you could tune in and you could watch him playing in Liga MX, which is better than MLS, really high standard, doing really well. He ended up in the team of the season. He was a guy for me who deserved a call-up based on the fact that he was playing regularly and the level he was playing at. There was sort of no reason not to call him after he'd started playing regularly for Monterrey.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one where... And we know why Bruce Arena has, quote-unquote, defended that decision not to call him in. But
we don't want to relitigate that.
But I still think it's important to, again, acknowledge what the player is doing. But also, this is where I had my final thing was, I'm going to refer to it as caps lock. That's my phrasing for this one. And I know some people do not like it, but I think there's an argument to be made for if there's a young player who's a dual national who is starting to look good, maybe you want to get them in there for the final 2 minutes of a World Cup qualifier.
I see.
Is all I'm saying.
To be fair, Jurgen Klinsmann did that, I believe, with Matt Miazga. Didn't he get him into a World Cup qualifier and played 10 minutes? Poland was sniffing around.
We're seeing what's going on.
And I think they were saying Euro 2016's coming.
Yep.
Coming, you know,
Yeah.
you might be able to get some minutes.
And I'm not opposed to that. I mean, again, that's Matt Miazga, who's already called into the national team.
Yes.
But it's like I would say Josh Sargent, for example. If Josh Sargent did have a European passport, then that means he's eligible for another country.
Yeah.
And so maybe if suddenly he had a German passport,
I would guess
and
Scotland.
And Yogi, fine.
Wonderful
if he had a Scottish passport and suddenly. Is Gordon Strachan still there, or has he moved on?
He is. I don't know.
Whoever the head coach of Scotland is was suddenly like, "Hey, what's your deal, man?" I'd be like, "Get him in there right now. Call him in. Give him 4 minutes. Then we're good."
But it's true. That could be a thing, right?
Yep.
Okay, we should move on from this then.
I like the caps lock game now.
We've gone caps lock. It's a funny phrase.
I'm saying lower level World Cup qualifiers. Maybe that's where we do that.
Even if, say, they haven't played senior minutes. And I'm thinking of someone like Julian Green here, who had never played for Bayern Munich when we called him in and started playing him for the senior team, right?
That's different.
But I think that maybe this is where you bring them into camp and you see how they perform, and you can be like, all right, you're ready to play with grown-ups, or I understand why your club team isn't playing you yet.
Yeah, I am fully aware that what I've just proposed is very much in reaction to Jonathan Gonzalez and the paranoia of losing other players.
But Gonzalez was playing, that's the point, right? Gonzalez was playing regularly. Matt Miazga had played regularly for New York Red Bulls at the time Jurgen Klinsmann called him in, so it was more acceptable.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
All right.
We made me feel better, I think.
Colin, I hope we answered your question. If we didn't, let us know. I'm sure we'll be talking about these issues again in the future.
Seems likely.
We have a first sponsor today.
We do.
And a website that someone used this sponsor to set up.
Let's discuss.
The sponsor is squarespace.com. Squarespace is where you should host your website. They help you design your website. It is easier than anywhere else. I'll say this. There are free website hosts and platforms. They are not as good. Not naming any names, but one of the words in the platform I'm thinking of is involves a word that's in a type of style of defending that Jurgen Klopp likes to do. I won't say any more than that. That website's free.
Doing a lot of dancing there.
That website's not as good. Squarespace gives you the full service. Design packages, customer support, security behind the scenes, all the good stuff from squarespace.com.
Yeah, because with our old website that we're not going to say many more words about, it was an issue of like this widget isn't working. Oh, they're not upgrading this template, so you have to change this. And we suddenly had to redesign the website every other month.
Yes, we don't have to do that anymore, right? So Squarespace is not free, but that's because Squarespace is really good. You can get 10% off the launch of your Squarespace website when you go to squarespace.com. Excuse me, I should know how to say it by now, right? You get the free trial to design it, and then when you launch, use the discount code TSS to get 10% off your first purchase of a Squarespace website. One of our listeners has taken us up on this offer.
Oh, yeah?
His name is Gabe Curry, and he has launched ardenarchers.com.
I like that I said, oh, yeah, as though I haven't been to the website with you.
ardenarchers.com is a Sac Republic FC site. It is just launched. There is only one article up there right now, but it promises previews and reviews of every Sac Republic FC game.
Yep. And we talked about this a little bit off air, but I do love the local USL team sites and especially the fan sites because it is helpful to get more of a read on what the teams are doing, both for us doing the commentary. That was always useful to find actual analysis of the teams.
So here's the thing. The actual official USL websites, I find, no offense to any clubs out there, I find them quite dry, right? It's a lot of stats. It's a lot of very press releasey type things. But when you get into the stuff that's written by fans or local media who understand soccer, it's much more interesting because you get more of a feel about what's really going on. Essentially, you get the bad news as well as the good news. Most club websites only want to give you the good news or the bad news with the best possible spin.
And sometimes, I know there's a term for this that I forget, but like you want somebody who's writing about the bad news because like the Richmond Kickers didn't have a very good season last year, and I would have liked to have read a fan site that was like, what are we doing here? Why isn't this working? This isn't working. And like more of that analysis of what was going wrong would be helpful.
So if you're a Sac Republic fan, ardenarchers.com. Ardenarchers.com is the website. Thank you to Gabe for letting us know about ardenarchers.com. If you want to launch your own website, squarespace.com, and then use TSS for 10% off. Link will be in the show notes.
Alrighty. Next question comes from Jose Andres Soto. He asks, with all the recent legendary player retirements, which player retirement has been your most memorable and why? Jose Andres' was Francesco Totti, because Rome is still weeping, and Pablo Aimar, who recently retired with his boyhood club, playing one last game next to his brother in La Copa Argentina.
Which is apparently the sort of FA Cup of Argentina. So he got to play his final game for his boyhood club alongside his brother. That's not a bad way to go out.
Not bad.
So of recent retirements, Totti obviously stands out because he was a proper one club man, unless I've misunderstood. I don't know if he went on loan or anything, but he definitely stayed at Roma for many, many years, till he was 40, at least. Did you know Ronaldinho officially just retired?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago? And I thought, wait, I haven't seen him playing for a while.
He's been in Brazil, yeah.
Apparently the last time he played for Fluminense was like 2 years ago. So he kind of like drifted away and then officially announced his retirement.
I didn't realize that. I thought he was like still playing in Brazil, just not at a very well covered level. Okay, then good to know.
So Ronaldinho officially retired. He definitely sort of faded away.
Yeah.
Xabi Alonso, Philipp Lahm, two other recent retirements that I quite enjoyed.
Are you just listing players who've retired?
I'm listing the most recent high-profile ones because they went out on top. They retired playing for Bayern Munich.
Yes.
Philipp Lahm retired as a recent world champion. Not so bad.
And a Bundesliga champion.
Yeah, not so bad for those guys. Okay, those are the recent ones. In our sort of lifetimes, retirements that we remember, what have you got, Taylor, and why?
I mean, it is Francesco Totti is the biggest one for me because like
you're kind of a Roma fan, right?
I am, yeah, because I went to Rome when I was like 15, I think it was, and that was right when Roma had just won the title, and he was everywhere, and that was like probably the first player. Like I remember every time I played FIFA from that point on, I would always transfer Totti to whatever club I was playing with because he was.
That's like that's the worst thing you could do to digital Francesco Totti.
Yeah, he was fine with it.
Take him away from Rome.
I think I also would always move Steven Gerrard to Man United, which was probably also not very good. That was before I fully understand the ramifications of such an action. So I think Totti, he's one that I've always kind of been passively watching, at least, if not more. But I do think that it can be a little bit weird with retirements because you do get the like rapper retirements where it's like I'm never making an album again except till next year when I make a new album. Like Paul Scholes, Landon Donovan, those are examples of that.
Two M&Ms.
And then it's also to your point, Philipp Lahm is a good one because he did just retire. Like it was like that's it. And then you do have the ones that kind of drag on and then eventually retire. So for me, I'm looking at the two other ones that were kind of big for me were Zinedine Zidane. That's a crazy way to retire.
He went out with a bang.
He sure did. And Ryan Giggs, because it was just it was the slow.
He sort of went out with a bang.
Yeah, I mean, it was the slow decline. Like, still, I think he ended up not finishing his like scoring streak of scoring every single season he played for Manchester United. But it was, this is my last season, and then I'm done. There wasn't a comeback. There wasn't a temptation to play himself in the final 4 games when he was in charge. But he was a player who, for what he represented for Manchester United, that was a player that kind of hit hard when he retired.
So mine are Matt Letizia, who, even though he had this England career that was very frustrating, only got 7 caps despite being my favourite player of the 90s, he did it right, stayed at Southampton and was just, celebrated as Legard for his whole career. Turned down a couple of moves, just made it clear he wasn't interested in going to Chelsea or bigger teams. And I think he scored the last goal at the old stadium, the Dell, which is quite a perfect way to go out, right? So Matt Letizia, great emotional version of a retirement. Gaza, one of those that kind of faded away, or at least sort of it had this big promise of the 90s, and then he was at Rangers, had these big comeback in the late 90s, but then there were spells at Everton and Middlesbrough where he wasn't quite what you wanted him to be. And it always felt like, he's back. He's he's not really back, is he? And then eventually Gaza retired. That was a disappointing one.
Yeah, that's always the bummer, is when they never reach that level again, or you never want it to be like with Ronaldinho, like 4 years later, like, he just retired?
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. All right.
And then the other one that sticks out to me, I was younger at the time, but Steve Bull. So Steve Bull is, Wolves legend, goal scorer, 250-something goals, league goals for Wolves. He never got to play in the Premier League for Wolves. He went all the way down to the bottom division of professional football with Wolves, fired us all the way back up, like 52 goals in the 4th division one season. And it always felt like the story would be complete when Wolves got promoted and Steve Bull got to play in the Premier League. And there were a couple of years where he played alongside Robbie Keane, and it really felt like, the future and the past will join together and have Wolves in the Premier League. And it never happened. And he never accepted a move to a bigger team, which apparently was a possibility a couple of times. I mean, bear in mind, this is a guy that went to the World Cup, played in the World Cup.
I think
everything didn't get to play in the Premier League.
Sorry, the reason why Daryl paused there, because I was staring off into space, because everything you were saying, for the most part, maybe not the World Cup part, reminded me of an obvious one that I forgot. It's Jaime Moreno. That was a huge retirement because he was there since the inception of DC United. I mean, he played with them since 1996, and so he was an ever-present fixture there. And so when he's not, it's sort of like, whoa, this is a whole different team.
He's missing.
I don't really know what they are. This is strange. This doesn't feel the same. So I think that was another big one that hit close to home for me. So just what you were saying from Steve Ball, I was like, oh yeah,
Steve
Jaime Moreno.
Ball.
I know.
Ball like Toro.
I know.
Oh, you're messing with
Yes.
this? I see.
Listeners, for what it's worth, I think I did get that wrong on the very first show we ever did, where we
Did
talked
you?
about our 5 favorite
And
players.
I kept doing the show with you.
And you corrected me.
I'm surprised I came back.
But then also, before we started recording, Daryl tried to insist that the word was pronounced
Hiffen.
just to mess with me. So I felt like I needed retribution. Anyway, Steve Ball's great.
Steve Bold of Arsenal was also great. I did not weep at his retirement in quite the same way.
Wait, did you actually cry when Steve Ball retired?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't. But I was sad.
I can't imagine you crying over a soccer game.
I cried when England lost on penalties to Germany at Euro 96.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Alexander King has a question for us.
You don't want to think about that anymore? You sure?
Alexander King wants us to think about what is the name of the Total Soccer Show theme song. Taylor, over to you, sir.
It is The Bread Song by 01.
And what's it about?
Literally working in a bakery, in a bread
It
shop,
is.
I think it was. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you listen to the song, you can hear the lyrics usually as it fades at the start of the show. It is working
in a bakery, it's hot as heck, about 103.
Yeah.
They don't say heck. And then I forget the rest of it. But
There's
it's essentially
definitely-
the process of actually putting bread into a bag and like putting the tie on it.
You got to tag it. You got to bag it, right?
Yep.
I can't remember the lyrics, but we did the Reddit.
Put a label
AMA.
on it and tag it. I
There,
think,
put
yeah.
a label on it and tag it. It really, I feel like there's some deeper meaning, but also there's not.
Nope.
Because it's about bread.
I think it was written by the lead singer of the band while he was working in a bread shop.
There we go. Did he just hum it as he was working one day? I was like, I should get some guys to back me up as I do
Probably.
this.
I would guess so.
So the bread song by 01 is the answer.
Yep.
Since we're talking about food,
Yeah.
today's show is also sponsored.
I was really like, we have another song about bread?
Today's show is also sponsored by RX Bar. RX Bar is a whole food protein bar with the core ingredients that do all the talking. The core ingredients are on the front of the bar. They are 3 egg whites, 2 dates, 6 almonds, and no BS. BS means either bad stuff or Bernardo Silva. There's no Bernardo Silva in your RX Bar.
There's no artificial colors, artificial flavors, preservatives, or fillers. It means it's a healthy option for
Yeah.
you if you're trying to eat a little bit healthier.
True.
Say, for example, what is the truth for me is that I went to a Super Bowl party where it was typical Super Bowl fare, and I found myself today. First of all, there was so much food there that they gave us all leftovers, and I was eating that yesterday, and today I just felt like I just need some celery or something. I just need something healthy. I would have very much appreciated an RX bar in that scenario.
What was on offer at the Super Bowl
I think
party?
there was like pizza, there was wings, there were chips, there were cookies, there were brownies, there were different dips. There was pulled pork with buns to go with it. It was a lot of food.
I'll bet
it was
none of-
excellent. Thanks, Frankie and Josh.
I'll bet none of those had the ingredients labeled there.
No, definitely not.
So RX Bar has the ingredients, the core ingredients labeled on the front, but also the big thing with RX Bar is because of those core ingredients, you can really taste the other ingredients
definitely
when it's
true.
flavored with cacao or sea salt or anything else that you can overpronounce.
Can you say that first word again?
Cacao.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between cocoa and cacao, right?
Sure.
Yeah?
I think we've looked this up before. And
And
moving
yeah.
swiftly along, you can definitely taste the sea salt, that's for sure.
There you go. If you would like to take us up on this offer, you can go to rxbar.com/soccer. Get 25% off your first order of RX Bars. rxbar.com/soccer. And then you enter the promo code soccer. So you got to use soccer twice. You got to really love soccer to get this 25% off. rxbar.com.
That's right, you can only use the word soccer if you really love soccer.
There you go.
We all know that.
rxbar.com/soccer and checkout code is soccer. If you're one of those people who says it's called football, you can't get 25% off.
There you go. Thank you to RX Bar for sponsoring today's show. A link to both of our sponsors will be in the show notes.
I'll put them there.
There you go.
I'll put them there. We got one more question.
We sure indeed. From
you
Nick,
look like you're warming up to answer it.
from Nick Lawyer says, my question, how do you get your UEFA coaching licenses? Can it be done in the United States? And are these licenses equivalent, better, or worse than U.S. Soccer Federation or USC licenses?
United Soccer Coaches, I believe, is
Mm-hmm.
that. How do you get your UEFA coaching licenses? Let's answer that first. As I understand it,
You live in Europe?
you have to go to Europe because you have to do it through one of the UEFA member football associations. So the English Football Association, Scottish Football Association, the German, the Bundesliga Federation. You have to do it through, not the Bundesliga Federation, sorry, the German Football Federation. You have to do it through them, and then you get your UEFA license, your B, A, or your Pro through a national federation.
Yes.
You cannot do it in the United States, as I understand it.
As we understand it. There are lots of articles out there that I read that said, just go to the UEFA website and take the online course. Now, that may well be a thing, but I could not find any evidence of that.
And if that's true, it would be the equivalent of like the US Soccer F license, which you can do online. You definitely can't go and get sort of a UEFA B, A, or Pro license online, right? There is no University of Phoenix for UEFA top-level coaching licenses.
Right.
Are these licenses equivalent, better, or worse than US Soccer Federation licenses?
My instinct is to say they're better, but I think that's just because they're European, and therefore I just assume that it's like more advanced. I just assume that Carlo Ancelotti, if you go to get the Italian one, is like their coaching, and I think if you go to the UEFA website, that has maybe colored my perception because all of the photos of their coaching clinics and coaching courses are like Jose Mourinho and Ancelotti and Allegri chatting, and like Sir Alex Ferguson talking to Pep Guardiola, and it's just like, oh wow, but that is obviously not the consistent scenario.
I think there will be people at US Soccer who argue that their coaching licenses are better suited to the United States of America. But I think subjectively, you've got to say the UEFA coaching licenses have, one, been around longer, two, exist in more developed and advanced soccer nations. The UEFA Confederation is gigantic. So you've got to assume that these are better licenses because it takes place in that environment. Fair?
I think I agree with that.
Yeah. And then the other, if you want to use evidence for that, I do know that when you do a US soccer license, so you need to do your US soccer B license. To get your B license, you have to have your C license. I do know that if you have a UEFA C license, US Soccer will basically accept that in place of your US Soccer C license and let you do US Soccer B, right? So essentially, US Soccer will take a UEFA license in place of a US Soccer one. That I'm not sure that is necessarily true over in Europe.
Yeah, and not that this either is like for or against what you're saying, but my assumption there would be that if you have a coach, say Tata Martino, like you don't want to make him be like, okay, you got to get your E and your D, and like that's not really going to be a thing they're going to do.
Yeah.
That said, in the United States, you can skip certain levels if you've played professionally or played in college. Same thing in UEFA as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Zidane didn't have to go through the basic levels because he'd played at such a high level. He went straight to the B.
But there was a whole conversation about how he was able to get his coaching badges so fast because it is supposed to take like years. Like you have to do a whole period. It's essentially you're actually building a resume that then you can, I think in the end, like go to a club and say, look, this is where I've coached. I spent 2 years here. I was assisting here. I assisted this person. And it really gives them an idea of who you are. And it's not so much, I got my licenses. Can I have a job?
Can I turn our attention to the pro license? So the UEFA pro license is the thing that for a few years now has been required to be a head coach in the top division of any European nation. Bob Bradley had to get it. Any coach that wants to coach at the top level of Europe has to get it. Some people got like honorary waivers, like Sir Alex Ferguson got it because he'd already obviously been around a long time when they brought this in.
But that's right, but they gave everybody like a deadline, I think. It was like when they first announced it, I think it was like 2010. Everybody had to have it by then.
Yep, and a lot, like Gareth Southgate, I think rushed. He got like a waiver for a bit and then had to rush it through and get it. A lot of people had to get it. There are people who are doing the US soccer equivalent, which I think the first class only graduated in December 2017, I want to say. There are people who are doing both. Jesse Marsh graduated, New York Red Bulls head coach, graduated that US Soccer Pro License class. He is taking courses to get his UEFA Pro License.
So those rumors of him moving to RB Salzburg, those are definitely going to go away real fast?
That was part of where the rumors
They're actually
came
Red
about.
Bull, though, aren't they?
And
Red Bull.
So I didn't share this with you because you mentioned Gordon Strachan earlier. He was working with, I think Gordon Strachan gave a class.
It's Gordon Strachan.
Gordon Strachan. Jesse Marsh did it through the Scottish Football Association. Went to Scotland. They ran the course that he was doing. And Gordon Strachan was one of the sort of lecturers that would come in.
See? So there you go. They're there.
But
weekend.
It also proves that those two things aren't equivalent. You kind of have to get the UEFA Pro, even if you have the US Soccer Pro. There is only one man right now, because Jesse Marsh hasn't graduated yet, that has both US Soccer Pro License and UEFA Pro License. It is Sacramento Republic FC head coach and technical director, Paul Buckle.
I would not have guessed that name.
How about
I don't know what name I would have guessed. Actually, I probably would have said Bob Bradley if I had to guess.
Right, yeah. I don't think he's got his US Soccer Pro license because he hasn't worked here for a long time, and there's no pressure for him to get it.
Yeah.
He's the LAFC head coach right now, isn't he? I completely forgot that. But it's not a requirement in the US to have it, I don't believe, just yet.
Okay.
There
That's
we go.
interesting. I did want to say one more thing about coaching licenses.
Please do.
We know there's been a lot of talk about how expensive it is to get a license. That is absolutely true. I do think that sometimes people operate under the assumption that they're free in Europe, that it's just like that's what clubs do, that's what federations do. You still have to pay.
Yes.
It's just a drastically reduced price. Like what I think Germany's was to get their equivalent of the C license, it was like 600 euros or something like that.
But here's the thing: it's not actually that's the cost of it. As I understand it, it's that the place that the centre that puts it on charges a certain fee. The Bundesliga or the German Football Federation, Federation will subsidise it.
Yeah.
So people are still getting paid, but it's getting subsidised by an authority, right?
Yes.
So that's the difference: is that the US can't afford to subsidise things down that far.
Right.
In England, for example, it's still really expensive, but there are so many clubs. And mostly the clubs are willing to pay the fees.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
That's the big difference there. You don't have that as much here, so the fees go up, and it leads to fewer people getting the licenses that we would like them to have.
I've heard some possible solutions. I think we should talk about them tomorrow when we do our US soccer presidential candidate, Voltron. I've never seen Voltron. I keep using it. Voltron is where you put lots of things together to make a big thing, right? Basically.
Megazord, if you're a Power Rangers person. Yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dinobots?
Moving on to the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Shall we, Daryl? We have many, many reports to get to.
Yeah.
Up first is Tom Gaffney.
I want to mention first the story in the New York Times by Rory Smith. Trent Alexander-Arnold, 19-year-old English right-back who plays for Liverpool. In that New York Times story,
Don't do this.
Rory Smith claims that TAA is eligible for the US men's national team. Just putting that out there because his maternal grandmother moved to the United States.
Wasn't it like a throwaway line, like midway through the
It
article?
was a throwaway line because TAA obviously has ambitions to play for England. He's starting for Liverpool right now and he's 19.
And
he's
has played for them at every youth level.
And and he's played for England under 21s and all that. Yeah, so it's not likely, but it's a possibility.
No, it's not.
I mean,
don't do this. Don't get people's hopes up and then act as though it's a realistic possibility.
No, I'm kind of trying to not get people's hopes up by saying he's committed to England.
Okay.
Yeah?
By bringing it up as he is eligible?
All right, let's put it this way. If his career goes a little bit wrong in terms of he's just nowhere near the England team and doesn't play for them, then it's a possibility when he's 25.
Okay.
But right now, when he's 19, there's no way Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to say, yeah, I'll give up on England, let's do a one-time switch and I'll go play for the United States. So don't put any hope in Trent Alexander-Arnold in the short term.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, I feel better about that now. All right, Tom Gaffney, scouting James Sands, 17-year-old American defensive midfielder / center back for NYCFC. That's James Sands of NYCFC. James played 45 minutes in NYCFC's 5-2 preseason win over Jacksonville on Wednesday. The MLS Match Report had positive things to say about Sands, and the Hudson River Blue, I think that's Hudson River Blues, my mistake, blog, suggests that if his strong performances continue, he will get minutes this season both at midfield and as a defender.
That's his life so far, right? I'm a midfielder. I'm also a defender.
Yeah, that's fine. If it means he's getting minutes, that's fine.
Again, I will watch MLS for the kids.
Yep.
So if James Sands is playing, I'm watching New York City FC next year. Stephen Kopech is scouting Kenny Saif. Kenny Saif, we should all remember, is maybe a little old for the Scout Network. He's 24. He's an American midfielder on loan at Anderlecht from Ghent. If we were going to the World Cup, he'd be going with us.
Yes.
Kenny Saif is back in action after suffering an injury with the US last summer. That was during the Gold Cup. Stephen says, Kenny Saif has impressed in his first 4 matches with Anderlecht, managed a goal and an assist. I saw that assist, it was good. In an interview with American Soccer Now, I'm going to guess with Brian Sciaretta, he spoke about his desire to be a key part of building towards the next World Cup. Kenny Saif for the future.
I like that. Colin Marshall scouting Conrad de la Fuente, the 16-year-old American attacker for Barcelona, their youth system.
Juvenal, I've been told to pronounce it by Jim Brochard.
Is it Juvenal A or Juvenal B?
I do not know.
All right, let's say Juvenal A. Why not? This was a good week for Conrad. We talked about this earlier in the week. He was involved in 6 of his team's 8 goals in their victory over Josep Maria Hene. He earned and scored a penalty, scored 1 from open play, forced an own goal, and assisted on 3 others. Not bad. In addition, he was called into the U.S. U18 camp in Florida, where they will play 2 matches against Costa Rica's U18s.
If we can find a stream of that U18 men's national team camp, that game against Costa Rica, I'm watching because there's a lot of good players on that roster.
I would watch for Conrad de la Fuente alone.
Barcelona player. David Kishpar is scouting Jeremy Ebobisse, the 20-year-old American forward for the Portland Timbers.
That's good pronunciation right there.
Thank you, Ebobisse. After an informative January on Twitter discussing everything from his Duke teammates' super draft results to criminal justice reform, Ebobisse is back on the field.
As you do.
The Timbers kicked off pre-season with a 0-0 draw with the Quakes and followed it up with a 2-1 loss to Seattle. Ebobisse played as the lone forward and in the second half of both games.
Yes, there we go. Ted Tracy scouting Rubio Rubin, the 21-year-old American forward for Club Tijuana. We talked about him as well this week. During his time with the U.S. national team in the January camp.
Did you put that or did Ted put that?
I put that. Rubio got some minutes against Bosnia and was consistently linked with a move to Major League Soccer.
Sure was.
But that is all over now. He has instead signed a contract with Club Tijuana.
That's all over now, baby Rube? No, that doesn't work.
What?
Never mind. I was trying to do like a
What song are you referencing?
Bob Dylan song, but also with Babe Ruth. It doesn't work at all.
I don't think I listened to enough Bob Dylan.
You're missing out. But the short story is Rubio Rubin is now with now with Club Tijuana. He's a cholo.
I think I'm thinking of his live performances and everything I've ever heard about his live performances, and that's why I feel like I'm not really missing out.
That seems fair.
Okay.
Go listen to Highway 61 Revisited.
I have that
Blonde
record.
on Blonde.
I have that record too. I think I mean more recent Bob Dylan.
Carl Gertz is scouting Zach Clough, the 22-year-old English forward for Bolton. Carl says that after a disastrous start to the season with Nottingham Forest, in which Zach Clough struggled to earn any significant playing time, Forest have loaned Zach Clough back to his boyhood club, Bolton Wanderers, for the remainder of the season. Bolton will take any free player they can get. According to his Twitter page...
I didn't think about that, yeah.
Clough is, quote, buzzing to be back at BWFC, unquote. Good alliteration, Zach.
Mm-hmm. Todd Ito scouting Takafusa Kubo, the 16-year-old Japanese forward for FC Tokyo. In a friendly against Indonesian side, Bayangkara FC, Kubo came on in the 66th minute, and proceeded to get a brace, scoring the game-tying goal in the 76th minute and then adding another goal in extra time. The J-League starts up again on February 23rd, so we will soon see what type of first-team opportunities there are for Kubo.
Guy Yedwab is scouting Serge Gnabry, the 22-year-old German attacker on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich. In a surprise move, Serge Gnabry started his first ever game as a wing-back in Hoffenheim's 3-5-2 against Hertha Berlin. It appears Nagelsmann was expecting Hertha to bunker and tasked Gnabry to create play with long diagonals into the box. Unfortunately, pressure from Hertha meant that Gnabry spent most of the game showing off his defensive skills. He played a role in Hoffenheim's opener, but then failed to track Salomon Kalou for Hertha's equaliser.
So I think
downs?
the conclusion from Guy was that maybe we'll see him more as a winger from now on. Ed Ritter scouting Ben Mines, Ed Ritter scouting Ben Mines, the 17-year-old American attacker for the New York Red Bulls. The Red Bulls,
another one killing it in pre-season, I believe. Yeah.
I imagine we'll find out in just a moment.
I've just got no patience. I just want to get there.
The Red Bulls' newest homegrown signing scored each time he stepped on the field in the team's 3 preseason games against the Florida Kickers, the University of South Florida, and the Philadelphia Union. I thought you were aggressively cheering for Florida Kickers FC. I was confused. Ben is signed to a first-team contract, but is expected to get the most of his minutes with the Red Bulls 2 squad, where he got time last year as an academy product.
So we might see Ben Mines when he comes to Richmond with the New York Red Bulls 2 to play in the USL.
Might could.
Mason Chris is scouting Marco Farfan, the 19-year-old American left-back for the Portland Timbers. Mason says Marco Farfan got 45 minutes in Portland's 2-1 preseason loss to Seattle. He was not at fault for the goals and looked very sharp. If Portland's acquisitions this offseason are any indicator, the Timbers are trying to get younger, which may mean minutes for Farfan this season.
We shall see. More we shall see. Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, the 18-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Kai was back in the starting 11 for Leverkusen's 0-0 draw with Freiburg. He played the full 90 as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1, but obviously wasn't able to help his team find the back of the net. Leverkusen are currently in second place in the Bundesliga.
Are they?
They're only 4 points ahead of 8th place Borussia Mönchengladbach. Very tight in the Bundesliga table, except on top.
Shouldn't Bayern Munich just form their own breakaway league?
They, I think, are trying.
They just play themselves.
I think other clubs are trying to do that as well.
John Youngblood is scouting Tashan Oakley-Booth, the 17-year-old English midfielder for Tottenham. John says Tashan Oakley-Booth was an unused sub in Tottenham's FA Cup fourth-round clash with Newport. Even so, he has been training with the first team, which is a good sign, I'd say, for a 17-year-old, given that Pochettino prefers to bring youngsters through rather than loan them out. If you remember, Tashan Oakley-Booth was a member of the England U17 World Cup winning football team.
And if you don't, Daryl will always remind you.
Every day.
Shane Tomes scouting Justin Kluivert, the 18-year-old Dutch winger for Ajax.
Guess who his dad is?
Patrick Kluivert's son has been a consistent starter for Ajax this season, most recently in a 3-1 win over NAC Breda. I always want to call them NAC, but I don't think that's correct. In that game, he picked up an assist for Ajax's first goal. He sent the defender the wrong way and then lofted across, which Donny van de Beek easily headed home. Rumors persist that Justin will move to Manchester United this summer. I hope he does
Justin.
not.
Don't do it, Justin. Stay where you are. Play the minutes.
Yes.
Oh, please.
I say that as a Man United fan.
Yeah.
I'd rather young Dutch players get minutes so that we get to see Dutch at a major tournament again.
That Ajax
Dutch,
team,
excuse me. Ooh.
That Ajax team is full of youngsters.
They always are.
Full of youngsters.
They always are.
Good ones. Really good ones.
Including Serginho Dest? Not quite.
He played for Ajax. This is an American fullback. He played for Ajax's U19s against PSG U19s today in the UEFA Youth League.
There we go.
He played right back for Ajax. Timothy Weah played left wing for PSG.
All right.
I don't know what happened. I haven't watched it yet. I just know that this happened. If you want to see two young Americans go up against each other in the UEFA Youth League, that is a game that you can watch. It's in our timeline. Travis Clark retweeted it.
I was going to say, if that's a game you want to watch, go back in time.
No,
is that where we're going to end up?
It's on YouTube. You can
Gotcha.
watch. You can watch the whole thing. All right. Thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports. If you'd like to join the Scouting Network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. You'll be supporting the show. If you subscribe at $10 a month or higher, we guarantee to answer a listener question from you at least once per month on the Total Soccer Show. We actually have some $10 questions we haven't answered yet this month. We will be getting to those soon. I promise.
That works for me.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the US soccer presidential election. We'll talk to you then.
Slice it.